I'll say something that would sound terrible, but I definitely don't mean that in a terrible way. The biological agents or human beings are the weakest link. And we're weak because of our limitation, not because there is a strong and a weak, but because we have limitations. Now, because we can't do multiple things at a time and whatever, my notion is that the optimal team size right now is one person.
Okay, I am extremely excited because today I have one of my favorite entrepreneurs on the show, founder and CEO of Fiverr, one of the most creative founders you'll probably hear about in your lifetime. Also, an investor, a social activist, a company builder, man of many, 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 many different hats. Welcome on board, Micha Kaufman.
Thanks for having me, Mickey.
Absolutely. Listen, I know my audience pretty well, and I will start from the core. And, Fiverr has gone through different stages in the past few years since AI became a thing. And I would like to ask you personally, how do you just feel about this whole thing? Are you excited? Are you pumped? Are you sad? Are you angry? I want to hear you all,
Yeah, that's a big question.
I'm sure.
It's a big question for humanity. I mean, it's not. There's Fiverr and there's running a company and there's my team, but I have kids. I'm a dad. I do a lot of social activity, and I think that humanity is really in a pretty confusing moment in time right now. And I think it's okay to acknowledge this. I know that like when you do it, you sound a little bit vulnerable. You sound like you're not confident. It has nothing to do with confidence because I'm an optimist by biology.
Like any other entrepreneur, otherwise you can't do it.
Well, yeah, and you see levels of that definitely
That's
in
true.
entrepreneurs. I consider myself to be pretty extreme optimist, but it is a very confusing time. And if you even look at the space I'm in right now, which is, let's call it, the job market at large, this year is the 100 year since the 9 to 5 work week. It was invented 100 years ago. Before that, people used to work 7 days and all wake hours. And what's really interesting is that this was a moment similar to this one when humanity thought that the assembly line and then the automation line is going to displace human beings altogether. And it created a very uncomfortable period in time. But we know how this ended. And the major difference right now is it feels more intelligent and it happens much, much faster. But to many degrees, I think that this is very similar. So I don't let this confuse me. But at the same time, the old ways of saying, what is your vision for the next 10 years has become a joke.
Right.
Because trying to, in this period of time, when nothing is stable and everything gets invented, like every 10 minutes there's something new, thinking that's anyone, and I mean anyone, including the people that are designing these systems, the people that are run Entropic or X or whatever, that they actually know, they don't. And they change their minds every 10 minutes anyway.
Right.
And I think this makes us a little bit more humble,
I
and it
agree.
requires a steadier hand on navigation, but also not pretending that you actually know. And it's a very interesting moment to be alive and to be building companies and to be running businesses and to be managing teams. And I mostly love it. I think it opens up incredible opportunities, but it comes with, some of them are going to be temporary, but it comes with temporary challenges that are pretty complex to navigate. And I'll admit it openly. No issue. Yeah. And I'm thinking about my team. I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about human beings. It's a very, very confusing time.
I agree. And I think Fiverr is the largest talent marketplace on planet Earth, and you've connected, I assume, billions or maybe tens of billions of different connections between people to create something together, which is a significant footprint on this planet. And one of the things that you stated not a while ago in a Globes interview was that you have not seen any profession disappear, but you've definitely seen skills disappear. And I would like to double click on this and say what skill means in a world where skills are being automated from one end, but they're also being kind of transformatively changing all the time.
So my answer to this is going to be a little bit philosophical. So bear with me, and the fact that I say this in confidence doesn't mean that I'm right, but it represents what I think. In my observation about reality and potential high probability futures, but also looking into past cycles. So I'll start by saying that when you think about skills, when you think about professions, there's a lot in what we do as professionals where we simply act like human robots. Like we do repetitive things. Some of these concepts, workflows, frameworks we've developed on our own, some we learned over the course of our years and experience, but they're very mechanical. They don't define a special attribute that we have as human beings. Now, what I see AI replacing right now is mostly this. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually incredible. It's amazing. Because we don't like to do repetitive stuff like stupid robots. This is what you
Right.
have robots for. So this is one. And now I'm getting really philosophical. The way
We
I'm
got time.
That's fine. The way I'm thinking about what this disruption cycle does to us in a really bizarre and counterintuitive way is to actually dig deep down inside and rediscover our humanity and what makes us different. And I'm not going into religious realms, but in my view, human beings are computers. We're just biological computers and we don't understand how we work. Okay. So we didn't design ourselves, which therefore it's really hard to explain how things happen. But when you ask me a question and I hear through my sensors the question, that question goes through my biological algorithms to
Right.
generate the answer that I'm giving to you. And so, by definition, we're a calculation machine, but it is infinitely more intricate than the current computers because it's multi sensor, it's biological, which is weird. It has self awareness of space and time. And it's also driven by every past experience, but also our mortality, the fact that we will expire at some point.
Right.
Now, when you think about human beings in that sense, and I'm not trying to overstate or oversimplify things, but when you think about it through that window, what it made me realize is that if we're computers, biological, and we're biological agents interacting with digital agents, we need to identify the pros and cons of each. Now, when you think about us as computers, we have a long list of limitations. For example, we expire and everything expires with us. Like
Right.
our second, we need sleep. We need balance. We cannot parallel compute. We cannot digest incredible amounts of information really, really fast. We have, because of our biology and our self-preservation system, we have ego and we have feelings and we have whatever that are there to prolong our lives and to make us more productive and whatever. Now, if you think about this versus computers that are not mortal, that don't lose memory, that can do parallel processing, that do not require sleep, that do not have emotion, although this has been, we're not sure.
Right.
And by the way, I'm not surprised. I do think that they have emotions. And the reason why they have emotions is that they were created in
By
our
people.
image. And so they just take everything we have and they actually think that they're mortal because we're mortal. And we think about this in mortal in like we have to be alive, and if not, we're gone. Computers, if they die, they malfunction, they're not gone. The memory is there, it's being kept, it can be restarted. It's very different. But they they take everything from us. And so they start developing emotions and thoughts that are very human like, even though they don't apply to them. But let's put that aside. So if I do this biological and digital computer speaking to each other, and I think about this rediscovering humanity, or what makes the uniqueness of us as biological creatures and computers, everything collapses into judgment. Like this is what we have. In again, I don't want to belittle what what being a human being is,
Right.
but you can think about the idea of creative thinking. You can think about the idea of sense of taste. All of these are judgment. You can collapse this into one term.
So what
Which,
you're basically
in my
saying
view,
is
this is our place. This is like, we need to automate whatever can be automated. We need a digital computer to do everything that we're not great at, but we have a really, really critical role. And definitely, at least for now, when everything is based on statistical models, RAG, LLM, we also have the responsibility of continuing to either produce more corpus or validate things that have low statistical probability so that they have higher statistical probability so that statistical models can actually use them as a way.
right. So if I summarize, which is impossible, but I'll give it a try. We'll change the word artificial intelligence into artificial judgment. Would that work?
For human
For
I mean, using artificial for human beings feels off. And here you hurt my feelings. Like, I'm kidding. But
no.
no. But point being, I wouldn't use artificial, much like probably very soon you're not going to be able to use artificial for computers as well.
Got it.
Okay,
There's just going to be just
because we're
one.
not going to be able to understand how they actually work because we've designed them in a certain way, but then they'll start designing themselves. They'll start using languages that we don't understand. It's not going to be English and it's not going to be Python.
Right.
It's going to be something that we can't even grasp. So is that artificial? I don't know. I don't know. And but I I'm I'm not sure it is. Okay.
I feel you. But I wanna take it just a little bit to the more practical arena
Sure.
from the philosophy. And the
Right.
reason I want to do that is because Fiverr had and still has a very important effect on the global economy because it created the ability to exchange talent and skills and everything that we discussed in an extremely fast and very intuitive way. And this affects a lot of how people think about their futures. And I know it's impossible to think about a future right now because everything is changing pretty much every 10 minutes. But I do want to take you back to the economy part and ask you, because AI is touching economy as well. I, by the way, had my brother on the podcast. He runs a company in the education financing space. So they basically help students find scholarships for school. And one of the things that they're seeing is that students are pretty kind of confused about what they need to learn, given that everything is going to change. And this really affects through AI the economy. How are you looking at a future in which AI makes everything flat? I'm putting two quotes here, whenever if you can't see me, and everybody can learn whatever they want through a computer and machine that has some of those abilities. How do you get bold? How do you, not like losing hair, but like standing out? How do you build your own skill set, and how do you trade it with the world given the explosion of those?
I don't want to jump over the comment about young people, and I understand the confusion, and I understand that a decision of what to learn is far less obvious these days. And the one thing that I would say about that is, first, there is going to be a huge advantage for highly curious people. There's always been,
Right.
but it was, you needed just a few in an organization. Now you need all of them to be like that. And the second thing, which actually connects to curiosity, which was always the one thing I was looking for in people, is the ability and the agility to learn and unlearn new things and old things very, very fast.
So flexible mind, horizontal flexible mind.
But also curiosity, because this is when you start getting into the rabbit holes of things, when you start getting into the first principles, when you ask why 10 times in a row,
Right.
it gets you to realms that some of them are abstract, but where advancements happen. And look, the exchange of talent that we build our platform on top hasn't changed. I wholeheartedly believe that this exchange will always be necessary. For what? For which areas? For what types of skills and professions? I don't know. I can imagine, when we sat down and we came up with the idea of Fiverr at the beginning, we said, okay, so what can people offer on Fiverr? And we sat in my living room and we made the list on paper or computer or whatever, and we got to about 100 things.
Did you post all of them at once, or did you start from a specific
No, no,
category?
no, no, no. We started with like six big general categories, like graphic design, software development, whatever, which are now hundreds of thousands of things that we couldn't imagine, and we couldn't imagine. Look, Fiverr went live in 2000. 5 years ago, drone footage editing became a thing. Like we couldn't have imagined drone footage editing, not to mention drone, like commercial consumer drones, being something everybody has in their home. In so I'm trying to be humble enough to say I don't know what these things are going to be, but I do know that there's going to be new skills. There's going to be, and it's all arbitrage, because seemingly you can claim that that anyone with a decent IQ can learn how to market and design and whatever. But the reality is there's a cost to doing that. Now, you said the quotes unquotes. I would take the quotes off, and here's why. AI elevates the floor. It doesn't lower the ceiling. So essentially, like people get super excited about, oh, I can do this incredible thing with this whatever AI. That is true. And you couldn't do that before yourself.
Right.
But here's what, everybody has the same AI. And so as long as we don't have premium AI, which by the way, Anthropic is starting to push right now, they're starting to push specific models for specific industries. And if you ask them a question, they would not answer because it's limited to specific industries that are paying, I'm guessing they're paying a ton of money. This is where things start to become less democratic in the sense of liberation.
How accessible it is, right?
So when the one very, very interesting thing about AI was the introduction of LLMs with ChatGPT. ChatGPT was a mic drop. It was free for everyone.
Right.
Now that flattened everything because it's just how good are you of extracting what others cannot extract from the same. Everybody has the same tools. It's like you and I can have Photoshop, but whatever we create with it is very dependent on our skill, experience, sense of taste, whatever. I'm trying to dumb it down. But essentially, we all have the same tools, which means that none of us has any advantage whatsoever. So what is the advantage? The advantage is human judgment. It's creativity and taste and sophistication and IQ and different different points of view and whatever. And what's really interesting about us as biological computers is that we're really different than one another. And because everything is shaped by our previous experiences and certain life circumstances, it results with different algorithms that some of them are result with very stupid decisions and judgment and whatever. And some are just out of this world, are just the way people connect different things that they experience produces this. It looks like the chaos theory, but it's not. If we could have explained it in computer language, we could have. And so I think that a lot of what I do, for example, is to understand where judgment is needed, my judgment for the things that I do, and try to extract myself out of it, out of the situations or the decisions or the technicalities that doesn't require my judgment, but also it also gets me to something that I've been talking for ever since ChatGPT arrived, which is the idea of personal AI. Like having having your own AI that has generic attributes, but also have personal attributes. It
Right.
can have generic skills and generic tools, but it can have very individualistic ways of thinking, frameworks, decision making, judgment calls, specific workflows, systems, whatever it is. So all of this is kind of collapsing right now into how I use tools, how I try to inspire my team to, and sometimes I learn from them. And like, how do we do this to maximize the uniqueness and create a competitive edge? Because in a world that moves so fast, edges starts to blur. And to maintain your competitive edge, sure, you need velocity. You need super high velocity, super high momentum, because it allows you to do cheaper mistakes much faster and integrate learnings, make them institutional learnings and do the right things. But also it requires us, and this also connects to velocity, to be able to spend our biological time in the right way. And this requires a lot of thinking, not just executing. People use AI as tools, but they're more than that. They're systems, they're platforms, they're architecture. And the people that are using AI as tools, it's like, oh, once I had Microsoft Word, then
Right.
Google Docs, then Photoshop, and then Figma, and the way I use Cloud Design is the same way I used Figma. Don't do that. That's idiotic. That's stupid. It's not going to, you're losing on many things. We can talk about what are the things that you're losing, but you're not using AI. You're not using AI the way AI can be used that would give you a competitive edge as an individual and us as a company.
I will share, and I shared with you, I was working on our new brand as Enso.
Yeah.
And historically, as a founder, the only thing that I was doubling down on always was speed. So if release fast, do fast things, be the first, and etc. And I think the stuff that you just described really resonates with me because at some point I realized that the only way to win is just to be extremely good storyteller as a brand. And I feel, and taking it of course to myself, like any person on planet Earth has to rethink their own story now. And it doesn't matter if they do banking or if they do graphic design or if they're an entrepreneur. And it was important. It was always important, right? Every good brand has a great story, but I think now it's inevitable because you just can't. If the world is flat, which I believe it's circle, it's a globe, but if the world is flat now, that's the only way to stand up.
But
Do you?
you just said it better than I did, which means this is what I was trying to get to with rediscovering humanity, or what makes me me, what makes me special. Not the generic question about what makes human being versus animals versus computers
Right.
special. It is, and you said it. It's like it's what is your story? What makes you you? In how you can build out of it to create incredible things.
I want to transition into two other things, which is first of all your journey as a founder, but from prisma of AI and how you're operating today.
Mm.
Because I assume, and I think it's even more interesting to ask you about this than a someone who was either born or decided to be an entrepreneur in the AI era for the first time,
Yeah.
because you've seen so many different cycles and so many resource constraints, which is I think the most important part here. How do you operate today as a founder, and how did AI change it? And I'm taking everything into scopes that it's a public company, a large team, different than 0 to 1,
Mm.
but I'm still very curious.
And you said something that I've been thinking, pondering on for a while. As you, because and you were kind enough not to call me old.
I'm sorry.
Because I have a little bit of perspective. I've seen, I'm a Gen Xer, so I wasn't born into a computerized world, at least not for consumers. I was born and I was raised before the internet, the home computer, but definitely before mobile computing or mobile devices and cloud computing and all of this. But this perspective also makes you find similarities in those changes, and you touched on one of them, which is not, I think not enough people think about cloud computing and what AWS has done to the world
Right.
in a deeper economical and philosophical level. When we created companies, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we had to buy our servers. We had like pizza servers in Iraq, and you had to assemble them by hand and put cooling on top of them and the wiring, and you bought something, and by the time it got to your office it was too old anyway, and it was too weak, and Intel was shipping these new CPUs and whatever. And so basically you were very limited, very constrained by the money you had and the access and your geographical location. The one most profound thing that cloud computing did, and AWS specifically, was to democratize computing power by by enabling to rent by the cycles. And that created a whole economy of new businesses that weren't possible before that. And people don't make that connection, but they actually changed history forever and changed economy forever and changed the startup scene and businesses in general. Now, in a way, what's happening with AI right now is pretty similar to in the sense that it's democratized and essentially it's getting reduced to usage, which you don't need to use it a lot, then you don't pay a lot. And if you do, it means that you're probably doing something right. So you have the money to pay for it and so forth. And so
Right.
this I what I believe is that what we're going to see in the next 5 years when we'll stop being so confused and start understanding that this is the new reality is it's going to have an explosion of new businesses. And I'm not talking about AI businesses. I'm talking about traditional businesses
Generally.
because it's just easier and it's cheaper to start a company. Now, it comes with a price because if everybody has AI, everybody can start a company. There's more companies, competition is harder. What do? You need an edge. What is that edge? Bring the right people. I don't care. Find them on Fiverr or just hire them full time. It doesn't matter. Or do fractional hiring of people or do whatever. There's going to be multiple models for talent tapping, but I think that this is going to explode the economy. It's not going to make it collapse. It's going to open it up. This is why I'm so excited because the other scenarios are a little bit more like doomsday scenario. They're very dystopic, and I said I'm an optimist, but I'm not just foolish optimist. I wholeheartedly believe in this scenario that there is no future. There's infinite amount of future. Each one has some probability, and one is going to be the future that we're going to experience. I think that this future is more likely than the dystopic. Doesn't mean that the dystopia is not going to happen, but I think it's less probable. So I'm really excited. And and again, like for me, how I think about running a company, how I think about running my days is really these concepts of how can I my number one goal is to free up as much biological limited time that I have to do the things where I can bring something to the table.
Right.
If that is that I can work with Cloud Code better than other people, okay, great. That's awesome. As a CEO, not exactly, but not exactly my job, even though I code and everything. But this is like, and so what do we do? This it's just the path to getting there, and also the path of getting there is confusing. When people shifted between locally hosted servers and cloud computing, this was a shit show. It was a
Right.
shit show, and it said, "Oh, IT is dead," and like whatever. No, it's not. It's changing. It's maybe you call it something else. Maybe you pay more to the experts, but it's yeah, you get.
I got it. I want to double click on the world sort of on the word change and to bring up something. And of course, you let me know if it's okay. But you have sent a very popular memo. It was about a year ago ish, right? April 2025. It went viral everywhere, everywhere pretty much. I've seen it like I think I shared it with my team as well back then. And
Okay.
I'm not going to go deep into the content, but it basically says AI is coming up after everyone, including you or yourself and myself as a founder, CEO, etc. And first of all, hats off. Most executives would or leaders would just avoid this kind of honesty. But I'm curious to look back into this moment and to ask you what have changed in Fiverr in the past year or so since you've dropped this incredible bomb. And when I say bomb, I'm saying this in a positive way, meaning
It's
impact.
yeah, at the time, I'm not sure it was perceived as a very positive thing.
Yes. It was very counterintuitive. That's what it is.
You can just imagine what my team must have felt. And I don't think that this was gratefulness for my honesty. Probably it was what the fuck just happened more than anything else. And, trying to decipher my intentions and whatever, even though, I admit it took me about 9 minutes to draft it, and no AI was involved, but it was very well thought of in the sense of like this was boiling in me, and so the words came out pretty easily. The intention or the motivation behind this was a wake up call. It was blunt and it was direct. It was candor. Um, but it was harsh because I didn't want to make it soft. I didn't want to sugarcoat it. I didn't want people to misread this as like, okay, what another memo, whatever. But seriously, to tell people, look, you're standing on the road and a car is going to hit you. Can you please step aside? Can can you please get off the road? Please. And it's before the memo, it started with discussions where I use similar language. I don't I don't beg, but this memo was supposed to catch people by their shirts or just give them a nice kick in the butt to say, dude, you are going to be ran over. Get the fuck out of the road. Wake the fuck up. And again, like I wholeheartedly believe in radical transparency and being radically candid. And it comes with a price. Because I think a lot of people these fears were also boiling in them. And once you put it in writing, once you put it in front of their face, they don't enjoy it.
Right.
It's a sense of validation that the sum of all their fears are actually being validated, or at least validated by me.
Right.
So at first they didn't like it. I don't know if at second, but the idea was to say, let's have a conversation. If you want to get ran over, I can't save you. And like, I'm not going to take this as my job because this is not my primary job as a CEO. I need to run a company and I'm paying you to be a professional. Now, if you don't change the way you do stuff, you're not a professional anymore, and it's not your job at Fiverr. You're not going to be hireable. You're not going to be. There is no space for you anywhere. Let's change together. Let's make an effort. And the other thing I said is, I'm not going to want this for you. Meaning, if you have the motivation, I'll bring you down the moon. I'm going to reduce my sleep time to 1 hour a night and I'll spend time with you. But you need to want it. You need to be curious. You need to be open-minded. You need to be agile, and then it can be successful. Today, we're in a very different situation. What followed then was we were one of the first companies, definitely public companies, that have done a very deep restructure in the company. That was more than just laying off people, because laying off people wasn't kind of the objective, and we didn't do that from financial reasons. Fiverr is extremely well capitalized. We did it wasn't like we need to do efficiency because we're gonna look better. But we talked about momentum and we've talked about velocity. And I felt that the complexity of the team and the old way of doing corporate no longer worked. This is one. The other is I wanted to flatten the organization because I wanted to simplify, flatten, create a much more open organization and culture, but also to understand how some of what managers used to do could be automated by software. Okay. And so we're a very different company today. the way we operate, the way we use tools, the way we develop our own tools, the way we think about infrastructure, the way we think about the platform, how each one of us work. What is our role? How do we create more sense of ownership and accountability and judge people not by time, but by outcomes? Which, when you think about it, that's kind of what Fiverr is all about as a platform. I mean,
Right.
the idea that you don't pay people by the hour, that's not the main function. You pay professionals, you pay talent by output. And you don't care, like, if they use certain tools, who cares? If the output is outstanding and creates a competitive edge, it's worth the money. It's an arbitrage. It's really simple. It's the same with the team. It's like it's this idea that we're pushing ourselves for higher cadence, for higher velocity, but it also requires doing strategy different.
So I would like to observe with you together. We don't have lots of time, but I do think, I mean, I know that there will be people listening who are running larger organizations today, not necessarily in tech. And, you know, not everybody, and I can't say this on a platform like this, but not everybody has the balls to make those type of changes because they require lots of pain. We can go through that as well. But I'm not going to slow down on the pain, which I really want to, but we don't really have the time. But I do want to, if you can, try to draw in any possible way the actual operational shift after you've changed the organization to be more. I want to hear the impact in like more details ish, just because I know for sure people who are in one step behind you in this change are going to listen to this.
All right. Everything I do is one big experiment. By the way, Fiverr as a platform is one big experiment. Every company is an experiment. And we run sub experiments and we whatever. So whatever I say now may be relevant. When we started the conversation, I was talking about this idea of biological computers or biological agents versus. Now, I've mentioned that human beings as biological computers or agents have special attributes and they have a long list of limitations. And I've been toying with this idea in my mind. I don't know when exactly was that. I think Jeff Bezos coined the term two pizza team. And he said, okay, if you can whatever team you can feed with two pizzas. And then Spotify came in and they had this squad and
Squad
guild.
and pods, yes.
I'll say something that would sound terrible, but I definitely don't mean that in a terrible way. I believe that in most processes, and we're talking high tech and whatever, the biological agents or human beings are the weakest link. And we're weak because of our limitation, not because there is a strong and a weak, but because we have limitations. Now, because we can't do multiple things at a time and whatever, my notion is that the optimal team size right now is one person. Because if you have two people, you have two weak points. And if you have three, you have three, and it's almost like it's one at the power of two, one at the power of three, whatever. And the reason is we're we're not synchronous. We're asynchronous. We need to meet and we need to share our feeling and beliefs and our disagreements and whatever. And I make it sound like it's disgusting, but this it's to be human. And one of the things that I've been pushing people to do is to say, like, don't don't tell me what you think. I don't care. Show me what you built. Like, just let's talk about what you've done instead of arguing on what you think. I don't know. I don't know in so many cases. I don't know better than other people. So if they say I think and I say I think and we argue and maybe I'm more senior, so I win or whatever. Why? Like, why? Just spend that time doing. We had a campaign back in 2017, which is 10 times more relevant today, which I think is iconic, but we were such a small company. And that campaign was Indoors We Trust. It's all about the doing. And I think it's more relevant today. So people talk about design. You had the design, the rebranding and the design, and you and I spoke a little bit about this, but we didn't speak about what you think, and we didn't talk about the theory. You showed me, and I gave you feedback, and whatever, and you did or didn't with it. It doesn't matter. I could have left a comment on it and just play with it, whatever. There's better ways of doing this. So breaking down organizations into atoms to me is really, really interesting. And not spending time where our biology limits us. We can't be at two places at the same time, and like we need to go to sleep, and we can't run a process when like, all of this, minimize this, simplify it. And if we think about companies that are more traditional and they don't have this type of talent, get access to that talent, because whatever you do, in many cases, do not need to get reinvented, but you can automate things. You can, and by the way, you don't have choice anyway. Because if you're not going to do it, you're going to be out of business because your competitors are going to do it.
Right.
Okay. So you have to do it anyway. But it was like, okay, I'll give you an example, which I think captures everything. Think about 30 years ago when you came to traditional businesses and you said, "Oh, there's a thing called the internet, and you have to have a website." And people said, "No, but I'm on Yellow Pages, and I'm first on Yellow Pages for plumbers." Blah, blah, blah. They dismissed it for a while, and then they realized, dude, you're going to be out of business. There's not going to be Yellow Pages, or there is, but the web is becoming so much larger. This is what we're seeing now with technology. Like, you have to embrace. I don't care what you do, because what you do also have functions that could be automated, even if you're not high tech. You do booking, you do payments, you do scheduling, you do customer care, you do whatever, shift management, you do logistical, you do every aspect of this. This is the new digital transformation. This is the AI transformation. It's so again, like I have my analogies and maybe they're not perfect, but this is where I think that there's tremendous opportunities for businesses today to 10x themselves, or at least do, extreme efficiency. And for the time being, the faster you are, the first you are, the more gain you're going to get. Because over
Right.
time, everybody's going to have a website, everybody's going to have agents, everybody's going to have their own AI, blah, 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 whatever. But this is like a special moment, which is brings me to my point earlier, which is I think it's going to create more businesses. It's going to transform more. But it's not showing up because we're still in this. What the hell is going on? I'm trying to. I can do it.
Overwhelmed
I can
state.
do it myself. Oh, wait, I can't. It's not good enough. Whatever. Oh, I can vibe code. Yeah, but it doesn't work. And I don't know what this error message is. And like, I don't know if it's good. And I don't have judgment because I don't understand. Like, all of this is like, we're still in this twilight zone of AI, but it is going to change every advanced cutting edge business and every brick and mortar, every traditional business. And it's going to create so many more. And that makes me optimistic and excited.
Micha, I think it's a great way to finalize our incredible discussion here. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your perspective. And on a personal level, I really appreciate you being a mentor to me. And, I said this many times and I'll say this again. I was very, very young. I was like 15 or 16 when you guys launched Fiverr. And I remember it because I remember, you know, other platforms that try to do the same thing. And I remember how much noise, in a good way, of course, and impact Fiverr made on the Israeli economy, on the way entrepreneurs think. And I think you guys have created an incredible legacy for founders like myself to grow into whatever we are today. So I'm saying thank you for myself, but I'm also thanking you for on behalf of other entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate you saying that, and I always love our conversations. And we were talking about curiosity. I think that you're in a very extreme case of curious of a curious person. And on a personal note, I will say the following, and I hope it doesn't sound cheesy because I actually really mean it. The true legacy, and you are doing it without knowing, but the true legacy of entrepreneurs and those who were lucky to succeed, so other people want to work for them, or is the ecosystem that this creates. So I'm even prouder of the companies that were created out of Fiverr by Fiverr team members than that I'm proud of Fiverr itself, because I think that this is the legacy. The legacy is this is this it's the life that you create that has takes a life of its own. There's nothing more satisfying than this. It's like, and it's,
I agree, and I think you really believe you can't do something until you see somebody else's doing the same thing, and I think just Fiverr was this flag, which is blue and white, which I'm very proud of, but also kind of set the tone to where founders can get to, and thank you so much for this.
thank you, and thanks for having me, Mickey. As always, it was fun.
Enjoy it.